going on, guys? We're fired up for another episode of a little dual podcast today. We're kind of co-hosting it. We got Push Performance in here along with Major League University, and we are excited to dive into it. A lot of really good stuff as far as what they do, what we do, and how it blends together, how we can help athletes reach their peak performance and full potential on and off the field. I'm Austin Byler. We got Ray Mack to my left. We got Ashton and DJ down in the bottom here, and we are excited to get this thing rocking and rolling. But before we get started, DJ, Ashton, how are you guys doing?
Good.
I'm doing great, Austin. How are you, man?
Good.
I feel like I talk to you every day now.
I know, man. We've been texting more than like 80 different threads. It's awesome.
It's great.
I appreciate the patience, though, man. It's been really fun and just really cool to see how we can blend together. And for you guys, man, we've heard a lot of great things about you. And then on my end, got to go down there to the facility last week out in Tempe, Arizona, and unbelievable, great spot, really cool atmosphere, and a lot of great people coming in and out of that building. So we love what you guys do, big supporters, and we're excited to chop this thing up, man. But kind of fill us in, man. I know you guys started in Colorado. We'll actually be going out there as well sometime in May and getting to meet a lot of the crew out there, which is really cool. But fill us in. How'd you guys get started? What kind is your background and really what led you on to this side of performance training?
Yeah. For me, I'm the founder of Push Performance. Started it in 2011. Which seems like not too long ago, but it's actually a long time, right? I didn't start doing what I do with on the baseball side until I want to say probably 2014 probably. So my background, I went to Metro State University, played baseball there. Out of high school, I was like 140 pounds, 5'10", 140 pounds, small. Had a couple D1 offers actually. Signed at the University of Hawaii. Should have went there instead of a JUCO, but I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if I went to Hawaii. I'll tell you that. I'd be surfing every day. But I went to Southern Idaho out of high school. My dad and I sat down and talked. He was, "Hey man, like you're a good baseball player, but you're way undersized for one, and for two, it's a different world." My dad had a good feel. He was a baseball guy. I had to take a good look at it. Like, all right, like I need to get bigger. I need to get stronger. I probably won't play till junior, senior year, maybe play at all. So I went to Southern Idaho my freshman year. It was a great town, great teammates. Coaching staff was terrible. We had 9 out of 11 of us freshmen leave at a junior college.
Wow.
It was a tough atmosphere, tough culture. That taught me a lot of kind of where I'm at now. I'll get into that too. It's like culture is everything, right? The leadership that they had was, it was just kind of like hard-nosed and old school. And it was just like not for a lot of the guys we had. I'm not saying I'm soft or anything, but it was just like under pressure for me. I was like, I couldn't handle it. Yeah. From there, I had an opportunity to actually go to Lamar Community College, which is down in Southern Colorado. We were ranked 4th in the nation. We were nasty. We were like 56-8, I think. It was 56-10 or something like that was our record. We actually ended up losing to South Mountain in the super regional. Which we work with here now.
I was going to say, look at that, how ironic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and we actually programmed for Lamar as well. So currently, so it's just kind of like a love-hate relationship right there. But when I was at Lamar, our hands down best coach I ever had, Scott Crampton, who's now the AD there, really put the emphasis in the weight room. That was my biggest thing. He'd make fun of me in a good way versus like what they're doing at Southern Idaho, where I'd swing a wet newspaper, right, where the bat was going backwards, moving me from third or short to second base. So they said my arm wasn't good enough, and just all that kind of stuff. So it's just like, all right, well, you're giving me an opportunity. You're leading me in the right direction. And that was the culture I wanted to be a part of, right? They gave us keys to the indoor. We were able to hit at 10 p.m. at night, access to the weight room whenever we wanted. I got bigger, stronger. Probably when I left Lamar, I was probably like 175. So I put on 20 something pounds, which is pretty sweet. And then I went to Metro, and I was an everyday player, played every single day, had a pretty good, career there. And I just fell in love with the process of the weight room. And then I took a step back and I was like, what's going on with baseball specific training, right? I was doing NFL training. I was doing all this other stuff. And I had a couple of baseball players I was working with, but I just noticed how I'd go to universities and visit and like look at how they're training their baseball players, or look at how organizations are training their baseball players. And I realized the disconnect was everybody's trained, like at that time, everybody's trained like a football player, or they're just not doing enough, right? There's two ends of the spectrum. It's like you either go all out, not for a rotational athlete, or you you coddle the athlete, where you're not doing much for them. You're not putting them load. You're not stressing their body. You're not doing things that you need specifically. From there, I just, looked at the culture of baseball and where they're at and like the unique movements of baseball and just started to go head first into it. I ended up starting training at 24-hour fitness. I was living in Vail, Colorado with my current wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. She was like, "Hey, what are you going to do with your life?" I was like, "I want to be a trainer." So she was like, "Apply at 24-hour fitness." So I did. I actually didn't get the job at first because I had a beard. And dude, it's a mess. It's a mess. And so then I reapplied at a different location. I actually got the job, ended up there for like a year and a half, and they fired me because I was making too much money. They had to pay me too much in every single bonus. They made up some BS excuse. So then I was like in a panic. It was like 3 weeks before I got married. My wife and I paid for our whole wedding. I was making like $2,000 a month at 24-hour fitness, balling out. So I ended up renting space in this office. It was like an office building, like in the basement. It was like 800 square feet, something like that. Carpet on the ground, couldn't drop weights. I was like, man, I was talking, culture is everything, right? And at this time I started training, you probably heard the name Kevin Gosman. Yeah. He was 4th overall. He was like kind of our first bigger name athlete. And I was like, I needed my own facility. So I met with this guy, I'm not gonna mention his name, but he went in together and opened this facility, and he had his brand in a different location, but he was more so on the lines of like training general population. I asked like a year into it, I was like, dude, like this isn't for me. You don't have the same vision as me. I just want to be a coach at the gym. Right. And so you let me go of my responsibility as an owner. And I show up to work one day and the entire gym is gone. Stole all my equipment, stole everything from me. So I was in the process of opening our new facility in Highland Ranch. And I had a garage full of stuff, and I was probably a 3-week layover, thank God. But I only had 10 to 15 athletes at that time anyways. So then we went in Highland Ranch, Colorado. And that's kind of where Push Performance really began. 5 a.m., 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, just grinding it out, meeting people, setting up meetings, building the relationship with the coaches we have there now, or the colleges we have now. And then, 10 athletes turned into 20 turned into 30, 40, 50, 100. And then we're like, oh, shoot, we need to get another facility. So then we ended up opening a facility in Inglewood, Colorado, which is about the same size that we have now. It's 10,000 square feet. We did that about 3 years ago, I want to say. And then I started traveling here to Arizona multiple times a week, just building a clientele. And then I was like, my wife, Ashley, not Ashton, we're going to be moving to Arizona probably within the next couple of years. And, here we are. That's kind of the story right there.
That's so awesome, man. I like the aspect of just like the adversity. I mean, all your equipment gets sold, it's done. And then you move into a new facility, you start with 10, and the next thing you know, it's thousands. It's crazy how it evolves like that. What'd you learn through the process then? Because building a business obviously is tough. And we have a lot of listeners who are coaching to build a culture, or like family members who are building businesses. What do you have on that end?
Relationships is everything. Number one. That's how many times do I say that, Ashton?
All the time, every day.
That's every day. Relationships and culture is everything. Caring for the people first versus money. But at the same time, it's just like going through that adversity, it just teaches you like your circle shrinks, right? You don't know who you can trust. You can trust a few number of people, but like if you have, I had friends from college and friends from high school that I played with, and all that kind of stuff. And I probably talk to 3 of those people now at total, so your circle gets real small if they're not on the same page as what you want to do and who you are and your vibe that you're putting out. Like that's not going to work out, So your circle is everything. If they're not supporting you, then, you prove them wrong essentially. And that's where I've been. It's like, how come this person over here is getting all the success and getting all the recognition and all that stuff? Because I don't care about, but it's like, I'm better than that. You know what I mean? And I think it's just when I stopped caring outside what's going on in our 4 walls, that's when we kind of really took off. It's like, you can't have outside distractions limit your success or limit your potential, right? And you can't get pissed about what other people are saying about you. You can't get upset with, if somebody doesn't like the program, you can't get upset with whatever, because I have now thousands of people that love what we're doing. You know what I mean? Whether you train with us or not, or people are saying like, hey, I want to come train with you this summer. I want to do this. I want to do that next off season, but then we always have those sour grapes or sour apples where it's like, you don't belong here. We told kids to leave. We told athletes to leave, professional athletes, and it's just not for everybody. That's the biggest thing I had to learn. And also, as far as the culture aspect, the culture starts, I think, with the athletes that you put in the door, right? Or for a coach, the athletes you recruit. So, you can set the culture per se with the coach as the coaching staff, but like the athletes are the ones who actually build the culture, in my opinion.
I love that. That's really good. Ray, what do you got? Because I know you got some good stuff on culture, especially with Coach Jay. And just like one thing that our old coach used to say is, hey, if I'm recruiting you, I'm picking my family. Like I'm not just picking you to pick you because you're the best player. Like I'm picking you to be a part of my family. You and the 125 or 50 or 40, however many kids are there, like you were picked to be a part of my family. Ray, what do you got?
Yeah, no, I just wrote down people over product, because that's something that we've been trying to live by over the last couple of years. And you hit it on the head that, we want to put the people first and the relationship first. And the same thing happened. I had coached at Nevada, was really fortunate to go to University of Arizona when Jay got that job. And then USD and UC Davis most recently. But everywhere you go, it's always the same. If you don't lay the foundation with the kids that you have and really build that relationship first, the team itself is going to struggle in the long term. So I couldn't agree more with what you're saying there.
Yeah, the people over profits is huge, because I mean we're the same way, right? Like, hey, putting people first, relationship building, those types of things. But it's one thing to say it; it's another thing to do it, and that's the hardest part for I think a lot of people is like, let's say it, but are we going to take the action to do it? Something that we pride ourselves on is like, hey, if we're running a camp, right, and somebody can't afford it, dude, just come. Like, you don't have to say, I'm not going to exclude you because you can't get here. Like, we know that there's financial barriers, and that's kind of what we're doing with the NFT project. So it's like, hey, we can use this to help you get into here for free, so you get the experience, and maybe it changes that kid's life forever because of that environment or that culture like you guys have, just being in the room with other people who are striving for something great in their life. So that is huge. Now, here's a question that I wanted to ask you guys too, and this was something that you brought up when I was down there in the facility last week. It's like, hey, when we're going to connect with people, we're going to get people in here. I'm like, what's the problem statement? And it was, people don't always know exactly what we do. And it's crazy because like just some of the coaches I connect you guys with are like, dude, love what you guys do. I see it all the time. I hear about it, this, and like people know it, but I don't know if they always know exactly what you do or exactly what we do.
Do
right?
you know what we do?
I know. It's like, do you really know, or do you just see this dude who's balling out? But so for the listeners out there who are curious, and we have a lot of Arizona listeners, like what exactly do you guys do, and how do you aid in that developmental process for an athlete growing up through the ranks?
I mean, it's, for me, it was like generalization was everything, right? In sport. So I took a step back, and it's like everything is customization for us, right? Where they're
like that.
You're gonna come in, it doesn't matter if there's two left-handed pitchers side by side at 175 pounds and they both throw 94 miles an hour, right? They move differently, they have different demands in their body, they have different issues. The nuts and bolts, they have the same characteristics, but one might have, and so then we're going to look at the way that you move in our assessment process. From that assessment process, we're going to look at the way you move on the mound as a pitcher, let's say as a pitcher, okay? And then so we'll look at your pitch profile as on the TrackMan. We're going to look at your video on the mound, and then we're going to compare it to what we see in our assessment, the way you move dynamically and statically on the table, right? We understand that the static portion of it is more so the injury prevention. The dynamic portion is more so the performance side. I can't say injury prevention, injury reduction. Sorry. There's no such thing as preventing injuries, but so we'll look at that. So say one lefty is a high vertical break guy, throws, up in the zone a lot, whatever he has his pitch characteristics to be. What are his XYZs for his off speed? What fastball grip is he throwing? Why is he throwing that fastball grip, right? The next guy is more of so a horizontal movement guy, right? So he's throwing more two seams versus four seams, probably sliders versus curveballs. So looking at why he moves that way. And then the lefty that rotates well is going to be the guy that is throwing two seam fastballs. So we're going to keep him rotating throughout the program. Maybe get him to create more stability. He's less stiff, a better mover, right? The other guy is going to be a forcing guy that throws high vertical break. He's going to have more lateral flexion, lateral tilt, higher arm slot, forcing grip, like I said before, more of a curveball versus a slider. Diving in that way. And then, looking at rotations, we look at all athletes as rotational athletes, right? It doesn't matter if you're a sprinter, if you walk, if you run, whatever you're doing, golfer, tennis player, even a football player, right? Every time you walk, you're in rotation, right? Like that's rotating. So we need to allow these guys to rotate, but also some guys over rotate. So how are we going to stop that? Some guys lack internal rotation, some guys lack external rotation. So we're going to bias exercises in the weight room to get you to achieve better external rotation in, say, your pelvis, right? Or we're going to get you in a rear foot elevated split squat position to bias your internal rotation in your pelvis. So we can manipulate what you're doing on the mound and make it more specific in the weight room, but at the same time, not taking the nuts and bolts of core exercises away. That's going to get you stronger, faster, all those different things. So we want to work off this, what's called the strength speed continuum going into season. So you come to us in the off season, you get your assessment, start in the strength phase, address your deficiencies, and then kind of go up from there, right? Where we're going to start adding power once spring training gets closer, or the high school season gets closer, adding, more sprint output, more different things that's going to keep you on the field longer and get you more explosive. So once your velocity program starts in the weight room, or with us in our throwing program, we're going to start moving faster in the weight room. So you got to compare the two. Then we also got to make sure that we have high days and low days, right? Where we have, if you have a bullpen or a side, you're going to be lifting that day because that's the high day. The next day is going to be a complete off day. So you can manage your CNS fatigue, your decrease in performance that way, where if you, instead of going high, like where you have a bullpen or a side, a lift, long toss, lift, game, like you never have time off, right? You're never going to recover. So on our off days, we give them movement stuff, personalized movement stuff to regain losses of range of motion. They might see our physical therapist at NextEra, whatever it may be that's needed. And it's fully comprehensive to each athlete, what they have. Each athlete has their own individual plan, whether it's position player, pitcher, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I like the individualization of everything too, where, hey, if you're this guy, boom, here, if you do this, if you do that well. And then for me, when I played, man, I had no rotation at all. So is there like an internal and external deficiency in somebody? Because that was me. I'm sure it was like hips are locked. It's like, it just unlock these things a little bit, which I really, really like. That's really interesting. So no, I love it, man, especially the having the rest days and not just being super high all the time, like having time to rest and kind of cool down. Really key, really key. Ray, you got anything?
No, I was interested to hear how Ashlyn got involved in this whole deal. So like, obviously DJ founded this whole thing, but when did Ashlyn get involved?
Yeah, so I'm Ashton. My background is I used to work in sports marketing. I worked for spring training at Camelback Ranch of the Dodgers and the White Sox. I was the marketing coordinator out there. And I also worked for the Diamondbacks doing community affairs. So I was interested in the world of baseball, and I took a little break and worked more on the PR marketing side, and I moved to California. And then my dad, Mark Meisner, he's one of the partners at our Arizona location, and they're looking to just kind of have more of a, work on social media, kind of help with operations, bring everything, just help everything, streamline everything. And I was looking to kind of move out of that corporate setting. And I was like, I could do it. I'm happy to do that. So I found just kind of how much, I got to kind of mix both of my worlds of marketing and, being a fan of baseball and working in baseball. So kind of perfect setting for me. And I also am a yoga instructor. So with our pro guys during the off season, I was able to kind of take a more baseball specific approach because, there's certain positions they shouldn't be in. We don't want to cause any other issues. So once a week on kind of the mobility days or movement days, a bunch of our guys would do baseball specific yoga as well. So kind of wearing a lot of different hats, learning under DJ along the way. But yeah, that's kind of my story mixed into everything.
That's awesome. We started our guys at San Diego on the yoga plans, and at first you get a little bit of pushback, a bunch of 20-year-old dudes doing yoga together, but eventually they're buying in, you know what I'm saying? So
well, the
awesome.
first year we did it, guys were like, don't know if I need this. It's just what I normally do. And then we had some guys feeling good and guys telling me like, I'm looking forward to Thursday. And it just kind of had a shift, and I would explain to them, why we're doing certain things, and just always coming back to that as well, which is what we believe in also. So they kind of trusted me more with that. So that was a nice little shift there.
Goes back to the relationships again. Absolutely. Exactly. And the way you guys are handling the holistic approach to athletes and really specifying on what each guy's problems or deficiencies are, I think is really awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. We also take that that customization approach to the team setting too, right? Where we have multiple teams that we work with from universities, like junior colleges, high schools all around the nation, where each guy's still on a somewhat customized program, right? We've come up with the system that, allows us to customize, but also get through 50 to 60 dudes at one time, whether you're a freshman or a senior, everybody's still able to work out together and, have success, whether you're, player X is doing this, player Y is doing this, right? So that's something that we've been able to do also is, being able to add more teams to a kind of our pot versus just the individual athlete itself.
How does that work? So if I'm coaching in Northern California per se, I have a high school team and I want to get involved with you guys. What's the first step? And then what would you guys do with my team to get them all kind of situated?
Ashton, you want to talk about first step?
Yeah. So it depends. So for example, if you were in California or in a different state, we'd either have a coach go out there or kind of discuss, if we wanted to set up remote assessments. Typically it's easier to have someone out there to kind of get that going for a team setting, but we basically go through all of the athletes, doing kind of like a mini assessment, not as extensive as our assessments in-house, but it's kind of a one-off, but we'll put them into 4 groups. So it's not fully customized, but based off of kind of what we're seeing. So we have the foundation groups, so the hypomobile, hypermobile, and then more advanced, and those same 2 as well. And then we split them up and we have the programs for all 4 groups. And we're able to, progress as needed. And then sometimes athletes will be like, wait, I want a fully customized. I'm really liking how this is working so far. And we'll have those athletes doing their own programs as well. So if we were in a remote setting, we'd kind of set you guys up. And then from there have check-ins, come out as needed. With one of our high schools we currently have, we have him go out 3 times a week, actually, because they've really been enjoying it. And they just set up their lifts, whether that's, some teams have it, built in as a class or before school or whatever that looks like. We're flexible with that. We make sure that, we get them what they need and that they're progressing, and we can adjust where, like I said, as needed throughout.
And then awesome. if you're say in California or wherever, a location where we're not, we would have a coach go out at the beginning of the season. And then say you had the beginning of the season assessments, you played season, and we do postseason assessments going into off season for guys.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, the customization is really cool. And it's kind of like blending the mental and the physical sides of the game. And you said something important there. There's like the core lifts that we're going to do, the core exercises that we're going to do to build strength, power, et cetera. It's kind of the same in the mental side too. It's like, here's the core things that everybody's going to do. And then here's the individualization with certain guys, like whether I feel more stress and anxiety, whether I carry a lot of burdens, whether I have the past, or whatever it might be per athlete. So I like that piece too, to where you individualize it a little bit within the team setting. Because it's not like, hey, everybody's going to do the exact same thing. And you mentioned something the other day. It was like in the professional setting, it's like a starting pitcher doing the same thing as like a 40-year-old shortstop. It was like, these don't really go together very well. It's like somebody's going to need something different per position and whatever that might be. So right. I really like that piece a lot. It's really good. Ray, you got anything else?
No, I was just thinking I need to get my 30-year-old ass on this thing.
I know. I'm going in the weight room. Like I walk, I run, I I go back and forth. Like, I'm not very specialized here. I need some help.
Yoga as well.
I love yoga. Big fan. Hot yoga, big fan. Even
Yeah.
Pilates. Like, I'm probably throwing myself under the bus here, but I'm a big fan of Pilates. I don't do it recently,
Love
but I need to get back. But it's like you get the core strength, you move, and I don't move well, so it just helps you feel good. And you get the visualization at the end. It's like it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Big fan of that.
So who are you now?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Let's flip the
seat.
script. So we're Major League University. A lot of the stuff that we do is remote. So I'm based in Arizona, Ray Max in California, and then we have our guy Nick in Vegas, but he's moving to Texas soon. And then our boy QB in Hawaii, and Jared JP, our blog writer, he's out in DC. So we're covering all parts of the map. We just hired a couple people on to do more of like the one-on-one mental skills training. Gabe down in Southern California, and then Carly, she's awesome out in Pennsylvania. So we're kind of starting to expand and grow, but a lot of things we do is train athletes to the mental side of the game. Really a lot of team specific training, and then we'll do the individual work as well. Some one-on-one where it's more personalized with an athlete. And the way that we like to label it is like, if you're coming to us, you don't have a problem, right? I think a lot of athletes, there's like this stigma or this connotation that if I go see somebody for help, I have an issue, I have a problem. Well, we're not like a therapist or somebody to walk you through this. This is to elevate your game and to take you to the next level and to help you think in a different way that can help you perform more consistently. And so that's really how we like to label it and say it with our teams or individuals. And so we're really growing that aspect. The biggest part is kind of going into teams and helping them come together. You mentioned the culture earlier. We can really see a culture from certain teams that are like dialed in and they know what they're doing versus teams that might be a little all around, right, and individualized and separated. So bringing teams together, a lot of the team building aspect when we do go and work with programs, and then some speaking as well on mental health. So those are kind of the main things. And then we got our camps too. So we got a lot of segues, but the thing with the camps is we use that as a way to impact the mind, right? We get them in there with the physical skills, using our backgrounds and coaching and playing, and being able to just give them some opportunities to impact the mind in an easier way, right? You go in there for some skills, and then you get some visualization and some pre-game processes and in-game processes. And next thing you know, you leave better than you've been because you found something that can help you slow down and focus in the moment. So we use those camps as a great way to impact the mind, get athletes together and bring them together. Really where we got into this too was, for me, Ray Mack came on 2 years ago now, about almost coming up this August. He stepped away from coaching, kind of went back to coaching, and then came back in, which has been awesome, huge help. But through my playing days in college and pro ball, dealt with a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. And even though the physical skills and the stats were there in the stat column, the mental mindset and emotional health was not there. Using a lot of prescription medications just to get by with painkillers and those types of things. And that was kind of my deal, right? That's how I shut out the world and shut out the failure or the success, and just, hey, stayed in my lane. I remember going every Thanksgiving, Christmas, you go back for school, and I'm sure you guys did the same thing, and it's how's baseball, like how's your sport, but how are you, like what about you, the person? And so for a long time kind of dealt with that and kept it all in until eventually I failed the drug test in professional baseball, was having a lot of success, and then boom, that just kind of sent me sideways and down a spiral. And after that, man, 2018 was changed, was saved, and started to work on the mental side, started to do gratitude, started to meditate again, started to get into some just proactive tools that could help us and me really at the time get out of my own way, and went into that spring training feeling better than I've ever felt. And from that point on, it's like, man, we need to seek this. We need to start doing this, because seeing it in the professional setting, 95% of my teammates were dealing with the same things, right? The stress, the pressure that you put on yourself and that you get externally, and then going down to high school and youth kids, right, with social media and those types of things in comparison. So that's really where we come in, is like bridge the gap, like help you process through that, help you have some tools to stay equipped, and to go into battle, to play freely, right, with football mentality.
So how do you approach a kid, or how does a kid approach you? How does a kid know that he needs to, start, seeking help, outside help, right? Because a lot of time as athletes, we're going to be like a lot of hard-headed. I don't need help. I don't need this. I don't need that, right? So how do we get an athlete to not only worry about the mental performance side of stuff, but the anxiety stuff? Those are all things I've dealt with as well, right? I'm open about that kind of stuff too. And, like for me, it's like, how would I have known that you're there and what you truly do to help me out, right? So how do you get an athlete to buy in first after the first conversation?
Yeah, it's usually for me relating to them with my story. Like, dude, I've been at the top of the ranks. I've been highly rated. I've been all this cool stuff in the stat column or on a resume sheet, but this is how I was feeling too. Right. I can relate to you. I can empathize with you and where you're at. You're 100% spot on. A lot of athletes are like, I'm too good for that. Like, I'm going to go work out and get big and get massive. But then you get out on the field and you're the 5 o'clock hitter. Like, all of a sudden in the game, nothing's working for you and you don't really even realize it. So there is a lot of that. And that's what we fight sometimes. And if you're not bought in, then that's okay. Right. Same thing for you. Like, it's not for everybody. Like, we want athletes who are bought in and ready to go, because those are the ones that get the most out of the training. When you go into a team setting, it's always interesting because one of our old coaches and guys really who sparked us, he came into Nevada. We've done some stuff with him as well. His name's Dean Wellham's Team Elite Performance. And he travels the world to do this with a lot of really high level teams, and just learning a lot from him. And he said something one day that really stuck with me. Is like, hey, 10% of the guys or girls are going to be bought in. 10% are going to be totally sold out. And the other, like, 80% in the middle can go either way. It's like, how do you get that 80% to the top 10%? And so for us, at least when we go into a program, it's one, being real. Like, we're not coming in suit and tie. I'm not coming in trying to like fancy you with all this resume and stuff. Like, no, we're going to relate to you. We're going to empathize with you, and we're going to share our stories that we went through as players. And regardless of the sport, a lot of athletes are dealing with things, right? Whether they're go to the extensiveness of using drugs or anything like that, or it's just, hey, my parents are hard on me and I feel like I'm always playing for my parents and not myself. And so those things happen. And a lot of the times the parent will reach out about some of our stuff. And then our college and pro guys, they'll reach out as well, because they're more, I guess, older and more mature with it. But after that first conversation, man, it's just relating to them with our story. Hey, we've been here. We've been in your shoes. I'm not just some crazy psychologist that's here to try and trip you out or anything, like, nothing wrong with it. But we've been in your shoes. We get where you're at, and we can help lead you to where you want to go, and at least have as much fun as you can during the journey that you have.
We see it a lot with athletes, like their parents pushing too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
Mm-hmm.
that's an actual issue. It's not so much the player itself. Like, we have a couple of kids where, actually, I can't even say I've had a couple of kids in Colorado specifically that the kid wants it, but the parent pushes so hard that they just drown them out, And
Yep.
I mean, how much stuff are you doing for the parents on that side of things? How much are you talking to them and doing leadership with the parent? Like, hey, like, not so much parenting, right? But like, hey, like, let us take the reins of your kid. Trust us with this process.
Mm-hmm.
And, how much do you guys do on the parent side?
We'll tell, like, with the parents, I'll tell them, hey, just be honest and real with me. Like, share with me what you have. If it's a one-on-one or if it's a group thing, like, just, hey, share whatever you're seeing. And then I'll use kind of what you say and see into our conversations of what I'm getting from the athlete. But that's a big piece, because a lot of the parents are putting so much pressure, and I'll see kids that in practices are like looking back at their parents the whole time, or they're so focused on what mom and dad think or grandma, grandpa, instead of like, what can I do here? What can I control? We don't do a ton of like seminars for parents, but we're starting to get more of those because we've noticed the big need for them. Like, hey, and a lot of parents want something because they don't even know. Like, some parents never played a sport and they're trying to, like, they're yelling at their kid and saying, hit the freaking ball, but they don't realize how hard it is to hit the ball sometimes, especially when you're thinking about your parent yelling at you in the back.
Yeah.
And then there's other stuff going on. So we should probably do more of those seminars and things, but sometimes at our camps, we'll have the parents in and we'll just share with them, like, hey, here's 3 things that you can do. Like, hey, encourage your kid, love your kid. The first question is like, how are you doing? Not, hey, you suck, or bad pitch, or that umpire was terrible. Like, take it away from the game. Let's go more lifestyle. I still love you. I still care about you. And when you show that you care, at least the kid doesn't feel like they're a burden when they get in the car. And I think that is, for parents out there listening to, that car ride home or to the game is the most
100%.
important time. I mean, I still remember my talks with my dad and some other parents who took us to games, and just how important it was to bond together, to talk about things, and to not be so focused on, you went 0 for 3. What were you thinking today? More of like, dude, that was pretty good, wasn't he? Yeah. Okay. Hey, what do you want for dinner? Like, take the focus off the sport so much and put it more on the person, and you start to see a lot more success, and you see the kids free up. Sometimes we got to step in and say, look, like, I'm sorry, Johnny, but you're putting so much pressure on your kid that no matter what we talk about in these meetings, your son is not going to perform any better. Your daughter is not going to perform any better. And I've seen it on both ends, male, female, it doesn't matter, where we've had some parents who are just way too invested in it, even to where some parents show up for batting practice at a college game right before the game starts. Like they thinking about that. It's like, dude, get out, let the coach do their thing. So you kind of got to draw the line, address it in the beginning. But at the end of the day, if somebody's not going to listen, they're not going to listen. And for us, like, hey, to the kids, we'll say, look, if it is a situation like this, and if they open up and share with us, look, like, you got to respect your parents. They're your parents. They're there for you until you get out of their house. Like, that's part of it. And we've had some college guys who are still living in their parents' house who are getting bombarded with some of this. But look, it's your journey, not their journey. Like, they might want it more than you. That's okay. But you just got to understand that they're doing this because they care about you and they think it's the best way to go about it. Is it the right way? I don't always agree with it, but it's their best way in their mind of how they think they should go about it. So just acknowledge that and then go, hey, it's my journey, my career, my moment. Let me go out and work for myself.
100%. It's just teaching the parent how to have feel, right? You know, that's like what truly is feel in the baseball world. And the parent needs to learn that, you know what I mean? You know, at around like 13 or 14, we see a lot of kids get, you know, with quote unquote burnout, right? They get on the bigger field, there's more pressures, there's whatever it may be going into high school. You know, how much are you guys targeting that age group, the 12, you know, 11, 12, 13-year-old guys? Like, what can you do for that age group?
Yeah, it's a big age group. I mean, we go to Colorado in May. That's really how the thing got set up. We're working with an 8th grade team, right? Feeder team. They're 7th, 8th graders. And it's that time, right? So puberty's starting to hit, emotions are starting to hit, testosterone or whatever else is happening. And people are changing, right? Then, like you said, you get on a bigger field. Some guys get better. Some people don't get as good. So at that point, it's like this, to me, it's like the most crucial time for the kids because you're preparing them for high school. You're getting them ready for what they're going to expect and what they're getting into anyways, high school wise. A lot of the kids are going to competitive high schools, so they're already kind of nervous or they're feeling the pressure of like, I got to make the team or whatever that might be. So just preparing them with little things that can help them. I call it the mental highlight reel. It's just a part of our visualization process to help them see themselves succeed, maneuver through situations on the game, and just help slow their mind down a little bit before they get out there. I'm big on winning the zero period. I call that the preparation period, the time before the game. And for all athletes, like, hey, what's in my control? The beginning of my day, the end of my day. What's not in my control? The middle of my day. Same thing as a game, before the game, after the game, but that game, not in my control, right? Whatever happens is going to happen. I can only control so much. So I really teach athletes that preparation period. How do you get your mind, body in the right place to go into your sport, whatever it might be, to go compete at your best? And it doesn't mean slamming 4 Red Bulls and popping some other things that probably aren't going to help you, right? But it might feel like it does. And so for them, it's like, hey, here's ways to slow yourself down. And some guys need to be amped up, right? Some girls need to be amped up. It's the same thing. So it's just kind of learning the athlete and giving them a bunch of resources and tools. And then, hey, if this works for you, cool. Take one nugget out of this that's going to help your game, that can help you slow down.
How much stuff are you doing on the follow-up stuff with these teams that you're working with?
Yeah, a lot of it. We'll follow through. We're big fans. So initially we said, hey, we're going in once. We're going to do the one-time hitter. Boom, we're in, we're out, we're done. Well, after a couple of those, it was great practice. It's still good practice. It's fun. But like, we want to build that relationship. Like, we want to be along the journey with you. Like, if you win a championship, I want to feel part of that championship. Ray wants to feel part of that championship. QB in Hawaii wants to feel part of that championship, right? So for us, like, the follow-up's big. And so, I mean, even today, I have like a list of a couple coaches that I'm calling that are some of our college teams that we've worked with, just to see how they're doing. Like, I see it from the outside how they're doing, but I want to know the internal. Like, how are your guys doing? How are you guys holding up as a staff? Like, is there anywhere we can help? Do we need to pop a Zoom session in and just kind of get their minds right going into playoffs? Like, what are the things that we can do to help? I think some people are more like, hey, each session is going to cost this or this. Well, that's great. Like, yeah, there's the price. It's a business. Those things happen. But for us, hey, if you need like an emergency session or something to just kind of pump you up a little bit or just slow them down, let's go. Like, let's do this thing. So a lot of follow-up with the coaches. If it's a team, it's more with the coach than any of the players. But the older teams, especially the college teams, they're more apt to reach out and to pick our brains and say, hey, I'm going through this at this point. What do you got for me, coach? Or how would you handle this? Or what are you thinking here? So a lot of the good follow-up there. And it goes back to what you said in the beginning, the relationships, right? It's one thing to go in, crush it, and then leave. It's another thing to sustain that throughout the season, check in with them periodically, and just be there for them. And that's where we're trying to grow our team a little bit, so we have more coaches that can go handle some of these things too.
Yeah, that's what led me to that question, is like that relationship aspect. That's number one key, right? And speaking of relationship, people don't really realize the correlation and the cohesiveness of the mind and body relationship, right? You need to have your mind right to get your body right, and you have your body right to get your mind right. You know, And, you know that, Ashton, with, going through the yoga stuff, but, it's like I look at like everything as in one, right? If your nutrition is bad, your sleep's going to be bad. If your sleep's going to be bad, your decisions are going to be bad. If your decisions are bad, then you're going to be worse on the field, right? And then going in the weight room stuff, it's like working out is also decreases anxiety, right? That's a piece of the puzzle to that, right? Just because of the science and all that kind of stuff, and releasing certain things in your brain, that's going to allow you to be at the top of your game, and then you start adding that mind training aspect to your body training. It's huge, right? And if you don't have that mind training, you don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to do the extra things. You just become lazier,
Yes.
So people need to realize that the mind controls everything. It's the biggest, strongest muscle in your body, and if you don't have your mind right, everything else on the table's, pointless.
You're spot on, man. There was Ray Mack read a study in our leadership academy, I think maybe 6 months to a year ago, Ray, the Switzerland study about exercise.
Yeah. Run it by me again though.
Okay.
What
I think it was like, this is what I got from it. We're talking about depression and anxiety and I think it was Switzerland. And I think that maybe it's just because I want to go to Switzerland. I don't know. Maybe that's just my thing. But it was one of those two countries, and the study was trying to see like what did exercise, just daily exercise 3 times a week. It didn't even have to be daily, just 3 times a week of like 30 minutes of exercise. What does that do for our mental health? And the study, I believe, was 75% or more of people who claim to be depressed or anxious or just have extreme like sorts of anxiety and those types of things. When they exercise 3 times a week or more for that 30 to 45-minute window that they were studying, their mental health, their like increased massively, their depression significantly decreased, their anxiety significantly decreased, the cortisol like levels in their body decreased. It was insane. So stress and all this other stuff was released due to just moving your body. So I'm a big fan. Jim Quick says, he's like, oh, now I'm on the spot and I'm losing it. It says, when your body moves, your brain grooves. When your body moves, your brain grooves. It's like, dude, I'll take my calls on walks because when I'm walking, I just feel alive. I'm with nature. Like I'm feeling, even if it's 100 degrees out, like whatever, like I just feel better when I'm moving, when I'm sitting stagnant, I don't like it. I just feel like, I just feel kind of stuck. So moving your body is so important. And like you said, the brain is the most important muscle. It's like tying the two together, right? Blending them together. For an athlete out there too, and another question back to you guys, and we'll wrap up here in a sec, but like, how does that work, right? Like within the program, what have you noticed that when athletes really take both sides seriously, and even if it's just the physical side, but maybe they seek some outside help or they just read and do things that might help them mentally that they're just doing, right, as a part of their process? How have you seen that elevate their game and just keep them more focused and I guess in their developmental process?
I think it more comes down to confidence, honestly, right? They're trusting what they've done in the past on the brain side, on the nutrition side, and on the weight room side, and on the sleep side, that everything they're doing, the results are going to take care of themselves. They might catch 4 barrels in the game with 110 exit velocity, but go 0 for 4, So it's like, hey, like you got to look at not the outcomes, but the process, right? And I think that's what kids see is, like if they can control their process versus their outcomes. For us, it's like, yeah, that's why you're having success. That's why you're going to your dream school, or that's why you got drafted. That's why you're now in the big leagues. That's why you're an all-star. That's why you're in the contention for Cy Young. That's why you're doing different things that we've had our guys do because they have this right. You know what I mean? And probably, I would say 85 to 90% of our guys don't even ask about like mental stuff. Would you say, Ashton?
Yeah.
Like that's a big disconnect, right? So if we coaches, we see these kids more than their parents do, right? So if we can start, having that conversation with each athlete, and each coach has a normal conversation with the kid, like you said earlier, asking how you're doing versus like how was your game, right? That's the number one thing. Like I always make fun of kids when they come in. It's like, hey man, how you doing? Blah blah blah. They tell me how they're doing. They walk away. I'm like, you don't give a shit how I'm doing, Like what about me? I'm a person too. But I joke about that too. Like, and truthfully, like not a lot of people ask how I'm doing at the gym just because I'm running, I'm controlling, I'm doing a bunch of different things, right? So for me, it's like I want to ask. I know how it makes me feel when somebody asks how I'm doing, so I'm gonna ask that kid how they're doing, right? So if you can just start with that aspect right there, like that, and put a smile on a kid's face, that's what's important. Ooh. Right? Then that relationship is built. And then once they buy in and trust you, you can pretty much do the dumbest exercise in the world in their program. They're going to trust you. You know what I mean? Not saying
not that happens.
not that we do that.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just like I could try something with a kid if I wanted to, right? Or I could kind of go, you know, hey, like this is how I traditionally do things, but I'm going to kind of go off, you know, try something else with you in you know, this plyo program or this throwing program or whatever it may be, just because they bought in that trust with you, with building that relationship, talking about their day and talking about taking their stress about, you know, off their plate about baseball. Because one thing I learned working with the big league guys we work with, like 95% of the conversations I have with these guys aren't about baseball. Mm-hmm. You know, the last thing I want to do is talk about baseball when I come home. You know, like, yeah, I'll watch my guys on TV and I'll, you know, support them that way. But, you know, it's like, sometimes it's a grind for me to even play with my 6-year-old just because I'm around it all the time, diving in it all the time. Right. But, you know, like these guys have wives, they have kids, they have, you know, a girlfriend, you know, in high school or whatever they may be. You know, the youth kids have their adversities, right? They might not be fitting in at school. They have different aspects. So, you know, asking them how they're doing versus asking them how their game is goes a long way in our opinion, you know, and you know, once they buy in, then their potential is there. Then we get to do what we're really good at. You guys are good on that side of things. We're good at the development side, the placement side, you know, keeping guys healthy, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's just a simple question is, how are you? Yeah. You know, like just like showing that you care. And it's for a lot, I'm sure you guys have been amazed that somehow some kids will open up and they might not ask us how we're doing. Cause I never get it either. Like even with some coaches, like I sometimes only get it. And so it's like, man, like I got stuff to tell you. Like if you just say, how are you? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. I'm not just going to say good. Right. Most kids are like, good. Okay, cool. Like go get your work in. See you later.
I'd say 98% of them say that.
Yeah. It's like, no, really, like, how are you?
Yeah.
Like, how are you doing?
What's funny is sometimes at the front, because I'm at the front when you walk into push in Arizona, and I'll ask some guys and they'll be like, oh, I'm exhausted. Like I just played 4 games. I had like pitched whatever and I haven't slept. And I'll be like, okay, make sure you tell your strength coach. I'm like, oh, no. It's like, I need to lift heavier today. And you're like, no, that's not good. So it's just interesting because, you know, these kids, especially I've noticed, just go through so much and they have so much on their plate and they have homework afterward and, you know, just all these things. So trying to really communicate with them too. And like you said, like see where their head's at and maybe we don't lift as heavy today because your body is not working correctly right now. Yes. So just communication, always coming back to that as well. And sometimes I'm the ears at the front and have to send a text to a coach, be like, hey, this guy's really tired today.
And that's where the communication aspect comes into play too, right? Where the athlete needs to communicate with his coach on that aspect, because then we can communicate with them on the importance of rest, recovery. You know, maybe we can meditate today. Maybe we can, you know, do a Bible study today. Maybe we can do whatever it may be that you need to do to get your mind right for the next day, right? 1% better every day isn't going full throttle every single day.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That is, I mean, that's getting clipped for sure. I know we're clipping that one right there. You're going to see it on Twitter. You're going to see it on IG, hopefully TikTok, if we can figure TikTok out.
Same. We have an account. We just don't know. I have like one person on there.
I know. It's like, I need my fiance. She knows what to do, but it's like, I'm not like that funny. I don't think like, I'm not going weird funny. And it's like, I'm not going no shirt, you know, like it's like, I don't know, like certain things play on TikTok. I'm not a TikTok. Maybe I'm just limiting belief. Ray, coach me up. But the things two things that you guys mentioned, one, like you said earlier, DJ, like just putting a smile on their face. Like, hey, just put a smile on their face. That might be the only smile they get all day. I mean, from school to homework to baseball to home, and who knows what they're dealing with there. Like we don't even know anybody's story, right? Until we really get to ask them. And even then they could be holding back. And then number two, Ashton, for you, like you being in the very front, you could be the most crucial part of that athlete's day as well. Like just them walking in, seeing a smile. Hey, how are you doing? Hey, I was good. I thought I was going to say good, but maybe I'm not good. You know, whatever it is, like just being there as that first person that can just lay that nugget or just even just a touch of happiness right in their life is huge. I remember, and we'll kind of wrap up here in a second. We've been rolling, but there was a really good thing. It was when we were first getting into the speaking, and I didn't know where we wanted to go with this. And we serve with Fellowship of Christian Athletes as well in town, and we do a lot of things with them kind of worldwide. And we were up in Reno and doing some things with a school, and it was an FCA group, and it was like bringing some kids in, and well, they kind of botched it because they didn't promote it at all. They just said that there was gonna be something. So when they messed up on the announcements, they said, "Hey, guest speaker in room 204, former professional athlete in Nevada Wolfpack." Well, up there in Nevada is like the team, right? So most people are kind of like, Nevada Wolfpack baseball, like, cool. I don't know what happened, but like 40, 50 kids start rolling in. I'm like, whoa, there was one kid in here before. Now there's like all these kids rolling in. Like maybe that's how you should get kids into the word, right? I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But I'm in there and we're giving a talk. I'm just sharing my story. And this is like my 5th time ever sharing it, right? So I'm nervous and scared. And we wrap up, we're done. It's 15 minutes and everybody starts to leave. They go eat their pizza, their donuts. But there's one kid that's like in tears, and he's in the middle of the room, and I can tell he doesn't fit in, right? I can tell he's an outcast in the thing. Like they might call, I don't know what they call him, but you just tell there's something going on right deeper. And so I go up to him and start talking to him. Like, I think his name was Charles. I'm like, Charles, like, how are you, man? Like, what's going on? He's like, I just want to let you know that I wasn't going to come in here today, and I've been contemplating taking my life. I'm like, oh, I'm not like a therapist, right? Do I tell somebody? Do I call the principal? Like, I don't know what to do in this moment. I'm just like a normal dude. And so I started talking with him. He's like, man, just the things that you were sharing about being alone, about feeling this way, about the anxiety, like that related to me. I was feeling the same way. And it was weighing on me because I don't fit in at school. And he just like empties out everything in his life. And I don't know what happened with him, but I know that conversation, just being able to listen, I didn't have to say anything, but for him to just share it with me. And I'm like, I'm changed forever by it as well. But you never know why somebody walks through that door. You never know why you walk through the door, right? In those teams. So I think it just goes back to the purpose of what we all do, and a reminder, like, look, like we get caught up in the grind. There's a lot that goes on, but taking care of the people in our control today, the people that walk through our doors or that we walk into their schools or their rooms, like somebody needs us, right? And just to be that positive inspiration to them is so key. So, well, awesome. Sweet. This has been awesome, guys. But I mean, this has flown by. It's been an hour almost. So we're excited about this. We'll wrap this thing up and get rolling. But Ray, Ashton, and DJ, we appreciate you guys, man. Everything that everybody in here is doing. And if there's any way that we can continue to help you guys as well grow Arizona, worldwide, wherever it is, you guys do a great job. We're big supporters, and this has been awesome. So we'll have a bunch of good clips coming out soon. But thanks for spending the time with us today, guys.
Yeah,
thank you.